Top story this hour. The US has threatened to take action against North Korea after Pyongyang test-fired a new missile in violation of UN sanctions. The statement came from Washington's ambassador to the UN during a session of the Security Council. RT's Caleb Morpin now joins us live from New York with more details on this. Caleb, thank you for keeping across this for us. What sort of action is the US threatening to take against North Korea?
Well, speaking to the 15-member body here in Manhattan at the United Nations headquarters in the Security Council chamber, U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley spoke strongly not just against North Korea, but against any country that she felt supports them. Now, in her statements largely condemning the recent launch of a missile, she went as far as to threaten the use of military force, utilizing military options. Let's take a listen to what she said at the Security Council.
The United States is prepared to use the full range of our capabilities to defend ourselves and our allies. One of our capabilities lies with our considerable military forces. We will use them if we must.
Now, this statement from U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley comes following a Twitter storm from Donald Trump and statements from other U.S. officials accusing China of having economic relations with the DPRK that are inappropriate or illegal. China has responded and said that all of their trade with North Korea is completely legal and compliant with international laws and treaties. Now, interestingly, at this point, the United States will soon submit a draft resolution to the UN Security Council, and U.S. leaders say that if this resolution is not passed, they will take action on their own. Now, the Russian envoy, he also spoke to the UN Security Council, and he said that sanctions are not the way out of the crisis. He went on to urge the UN Security Council to have more dialogue, and there has been a proposal from both Russia and China to de-escalate the situation on the peninsula, with not only North Korea ending its nuclear proliferation and its testing of missiles, but also the United States getting rid of this THAAD missile system in the south and ending their provocative military exercises with South Korea. So a lot of different proposals being made. The world is waiting to see this resolution that U.S. leaders spoke of.
OK, Caleb, thank you for bringing us up to speed. That's RT's Caleb Morpin speaking to us live from New York now. Let's continue the discussion and cross live to our guest, Mr. Adam Gary, a political analyst. Mr. Gary, thank you for joining us on RT International. Now, Washington has previously threatened to take action against North Korea if it continues with its missile tests. What kind of reaction do you think we can expect from Pyongyang?
Well, North Korea is not going to be happy about this. We have to remember, North Korea launched a missile that wasn't intended to hurt anyone, and it did not hurt anyone. And what we saw at the United Nations today was the continuation of the spectacle in which the United States and her increasingly few allies are using that international body of peace as a kind of global apartheid to justify and rubber stamp wars and sanctions which amount to war. I'd remind you of the crippling sanctions that America hoisted upon Iraq in the 90s and what they're doing to Syria now. North Korea will be totally aware of this. North Korea will also be aware that in 1952 it was America and her allies which leveled Pyongyang to the ground, where by contrast North Korea has not and frankly does not intend to attack America aggressively. So they're going to be watching today's proceedings. They're going to hate the United States even more than they already do. They'll see Russia and China as countries which don't necessarily always agree with them, countries which aren't allies to them, but countries which do not wish them and their people harm. They're countries that want to engage in peace. They're countries that could end up saving North Korea from American aggression, and they will smile upon that surely.
Well, the question that everybody just really wants to know the answer to is, what does North Korea want? I mean, it's been provoking the international community with its weapons tests for years now. So far, they've only landed themselves with more sanctions and more foreign pressure. So what are they trying to achieve?
Oh, I know what you mean. America can get away with actual murder because it's big and it's rich, and so can its allies. North Korea doesn't have that luxury. In this sense, North Korea and America both like sticking a big middle finger up to the wider world. Of course, China and Russia have shown that they are tired with the irresponsibility of both sides. North Korea, though, beyond the saber-rattling and beyond not listening to what its well-wishers say, they do have legitimate security concerns. In the lifetime of many of the people that are viewing this broadcast, America committed incredible acts of violence on the Korean Peninsula and, of course, North Korea in particular. So there is, as the Russian envoy to the UN said today, there are legitimate concerns, security concerns of Pyongyang, which need to be balanced out by the will of China and Russia to have both sides stand down. And that, of course, includes a freezing of the nuclear program in the north and an end to drills between the South Korean forces and those of the UN. And, of course, on top of that, a cessation of the delivery of the aggressive THAAD missile systems to South Korea. If one actually is interested in peace rather than continued violence, rather than feeding this flaming inferno, which luckily hasn't killed anyone yet, unlike the inferno of ISIS in the Philippines, which is the real scandal in Asia, then people ought to listen to Russia and China, who are speaking in a unified voice on this.
And what do you make of how China, it seems to be being dragged into this? I mean, the US has slammed China for its trade relations with North Korea. Why do you think Washington seems to think it's okay to tell Beijing what to do?
Because America doesn't seem to realize who the economic superpower of the world is. It isn't America, it's China. Donald Trump has for months sent patronizing tweets about China. He showed a great deal of disrespect to the Chinese president when over dinner, over a big beautiful chocolate cake, to quote Donald Trump himself, he told President Xi that America was bombing Syria. And of course, China opposes acts of aggression against Syria. This just shows that America doesn't respect its fellow superpowers, even though its fellow superpowers do respect America, though the patience, I must say, is wearing thin. America treats China like North Korea's its problem, like it's some sort of problem child. North Korea is an independent state, and if anything, China and Russia, which are the only two countries other than South Korea which border North Korea, they ought to be listened to rather than spoken down to. It's not just China, of course. Nikki Haley said the same thing, like some sort of cocktail waitress turned cowgirl, lecturing, hectoring the Russian ambassador to the UN, almost challenging him to veto it as though it's something in a John Wayne movie. It's unreal, simply unreal.
Mr. Adam Gary, political analyst, thank you for joining us on RT International.
Thank you.